Persepolis is a fascinating tourist destination. Founded by Darius the First in 518 BC, Persepolis was a capital of a huge empire. It was built on an immense half-artificial, half-natural terrace, where Darius created an impressive palace complex inspired by Mesopotamian models. The importance and quality of the monumental ruins makes this a unique tourist site. My name's Don, pictured here, and I visited the site in October 1975. Looking in at the front gate, notice that you do have to climb quite a few steps to get to the terrace. We look ahead of us at the hills. My overland trip for 6 months from Canada to Australia was for 3 months on a four-wheel drive type truck. And we camped right outside Persepolis. Persepolis took about 100 years to build, and it really only lasted a couple of hundred years because it was burned by Alexander the Great between 331 and 330 BC. The ruins were only recently studied during the 1930s. There's a great deal of information on Persepolis, and we'll just glance at some of the printed information that's readily available. And of course there's the websites as well. This book has been on the bestseller list and was one of 4, but I don't know if it's really about Persepolis per se. A good book dealing with the archaeology of Persepolis, seat of the Persian kings. Persepolis has managed to creep into modern culture. Here's a shoot-them-up computer game which is situated in Persepolis and shows the popular culture image. There's lots of tourist things that can be bought as well. A gold-plated plate featuring Persepolis. If you look at the website, you can get all the details. There's a lot more to it than we can cover in a brief movie. This website outlines the various Persian kings. Darius the First, called the Great. Xerxes, the son. Artaxerxes the First, and the 4th century BC. Artaxerxes the Second. I did honors history at university originally and did a honors Greek history course where I read Herodotus and studied the Persian wars. It was fascinating. Persepolis, of course, is located in Iran, and we show you its location in the southern central part of Iran. The nearest city is a sizable one called Shiraz with a jet airport, and it's about 30 to 50 miles to drive to Persepolis. The square on the left is the residential and tourist accommodation, while the big square to the right is Persepolis itself. A satellite view of Persepolis, unfortunately, is too big. However, there are aerial shots, and we'll take a look at them. Here you can see that Persepolis is on a terrace backed by mountains, and there's a substantial drop to the plain below. Another aerial photograph, this one from a different angle. You can see the terrace at the front, backed by the mountains at the back. There's not a great deal left after its destruction by Alexander the Great. All the buildings have been pretty well leveled to the ground, although a few pillars and arches remain. This map shows the layout, and unfortunately, to get the perspective right, I've had to invert it and turn it around. Now it looks the same as the aerial photograph, but you can see the terrace on the right. The mountain is at the back. This map outlines the names of the buildings. The audience hall is the very big building at the entrance. Mind you, not much of that remains. A few pillars. Now back to the aerial photograph, and you can see what it's like in fact, as opposed to the map. It's really hard to get your head around the different palaces, meeting places and buildings, particularly when not much is left, only tiny squares in the ground and a few marble slabs. Yet another map, and I've reoriented it to match the aerial photographs. There were lots of British adventurers visit Persepolis during the 1700s and again in the 1800s. You can see their names and the dates of their visits carved into the rock. Here's a view of Persepolis, I think probably done from the hills behind. Another early 19th century British engraving. Here's another 19th century British engraving, this one showing lions. I'm not quite sure the symbolism of the lions, but they do feature highly. More British engravings from the 19th century. They excited great fascination in gentlemen's magazines in England. This scene is, I think, Alexander the Great making the decision to burn Persepolis. Now we'll take a look at some photographs just to let you see what it's like close up. This is a wonderful wide-angle lens view of Persepolis, taken from the hills and looking down towards the main entrance and the terrace. It's the best view of the overall complex to appear in this movie. The question is, dear viewer, can you identify the different sections from the maps? It's a real challenge. This view is taken from the hills looking towards the terrace, taking in the right-hand side of the complex. This picture looks at the left-hand side. The large building is the museum. another view from the hills that encompasses most of the complex. Looking down from the hills at the foreground and taking in the site, the buildings on the far left at the back are the main entrance, and the terrace is that flat line next to the green trees. Well, I'm hoping you've got some orientation and a bit of a feel for the complexity of this majestic site. Well enough, this is the only photograph looking from Persepolis up into the hills, and you can see some tombs built into the side of the hills. There's a number of them. Stairs climbing into Persepolis. Persepolis has a lumiere, a sound and light show that's operated every night. There are some original inscriptions. The most fascinating thing for the photographer, particularly with the digital camera, is looking at all the bas reliefs, all the carvings in the rock, to give you some idea of the grandeur of the site. This pillar shows the king on his throne, surrounded by 50 soldiers. It's one of the entrances into Persepolis. A very famous carving that's photographed by almost everyone, a lion attacking a horse. Let's have a look at a few more. Well, it's not really a horse. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's got funny antlers. More steps into Persepolis. Once again, a map to reorient yourself. You can see the staircases built into the terrace, the bottom left. I'm no expert, and I'm sure some of these slides are somewhat jumbled, but if you're aware of mistakes, please let me know. Guards of the king. This is a reproduction to sell to tourists. And the real carvings. Carvings in the cliff face. We'll take a look at the Apadana Palace. The eastern stairway shows people from many nations who were subject to the Persian Empire arriving to present gifts. This photograph, perhaps taken in early 1900, predates reconstruction, and I think they're working pretty steadily to improve the site. Things are not like this anymore. The procession up the staircase. They all bear gifts for the king. You can actually make out what they're carrying in some cases. It's quite clear what these people are carrying. Here the king sits to receive the audience. I presume this would be Darius the First, an engraving from the 19th century. It's actually based on this carving. A closer up view. The king himself. Now a visit to Apadana Palace, which consists of mainly these pillars. This is the northern staircase of the Apadana Palace. Xerxes on a relief of Darius the First the Great. Used to be on the north stairs of the Apadana, but it's now been moved to the Archaeological Museum in Tehran. This is very famous and everyone takes photographs of it. I think it's just being restored, and I'm not really sure if this is in Apadana Palace. Let's take a look at Darius's palace. It's on a separate podium near the terrace. It's the basis for the later royal residences. It's got a single entrance, flanked by guard rooms. The 100 Columns Palace was also known as the throne room. It was begun by Xerxes and completed by his son Artaxerxes. Here's the inscription actually on the site. A 19th century British engraving showing the queue of people. This is the Gate of All Nations. It's the main entrance into the site once you've climbed the terrace. Now a quick glance at some of the tombs built into the cliffs behind Persepolis. A closer view. Notice the carvings at the bottom. Now we'll look at Persepolis Museum within the confines of Persepolis. There's quite a few ruins from Persepolis in other museums scattered around as well. Here's the museum here, and you can see stones being stored. Unfortunately, photographs are not allowed in the museums. Tourists can purchase lots of souvenirs of Persepolis. They do make nice souvenirs as well. Thank you, dear viewer, for joining me on this visit to Persepolis, Iran. I do appreciate your company and wish you a very pleasant day.